Right on.
Hey, how you doing, Tom?
Yeah, good, mate. I appreciate you finding the time to speak with me today. It's
Certainly.
no, I've been following a lot of your stuff on LinkedIn, and I honestly think that this will make for a very very insightful interview. So that's why I called you up. So we'll just dive
All
straight
right.
on in, and we'll start with a brief introduction. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how we arrived at this point.
Sure, yeah, definitely. Back in 2014, I first discovered Bitcoin. I was trying to make a decision whether I should buy Bitcoin or Ethereum. Right when the Ethereum ICO happened, I ended up buying Bitcoin. That was the top back then. It was like $1,000 US, 1,200 US, and I ended up losing a bunch of money and never got my 30,000 Ethereum. I'm still kicking myself about that. Um, then fast forward, like because I lost some money, I didn't touch it for a couple of years. 2016, got back into it because I saw that Bitcoin was about to break out, so started playing around with Bitcoin, Ethereum. I got interested in mining, so I taught myself how to build, an Ethereum mining rig, and I started mining Ethereum. This was before um, they had any like proper mining software. Like I was just using the DOS commands. Yeah, so that was a bit of a learning curve, and I figured that out. So I ended up mining a bit of Ethereum at that point, and saw the 2017 bull run. Made a shitload of money, and then sorry for my cursing. I made a buttload of money back then, and and then the dumps started happening, and I started asking questions. Because there was a whole Bitcoin Cash controversy. So I was like, okay, what's the deal with this Bitcoin Cash thing? And that's when I started doing, pretty heavy research into the history of Bitcoin, going through the old forums, seeing what people wrote, getting different sorts of points of views from like big blockers versus small blockers, and I realized that there was, something pretty seriously wrong with the crypto market. And around that time, I started figuring out about Tether, and I'm like, okay, yeah, this like there's a big scam going on. So I kept going down that rabbit hole, and I came across this guy, Craig Wright, who I believe is the creator of Bitcoin. And much of what I speak about today, I've learned kind of like through him or through people that learned through him, which gives me like a kind of a unique perspective compared to most others in the crypto sphere. So I'm highly critical. At this point, I'm a no coiner. I don't hold any crypto. I don't plan to hold any crypto. I don't think it's one of those types of things that you should be holding. Um, so yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now. I'm just um, trying to evangelize the gospel of no coins.
Okay, perfect. Well, you mentioned Craig Wright there. That's an Aussie fella as well, and he gets. I think he's actually being dragged through the muck right now. I've seen a bunch of posts. I think he's going through some sort of legal battle, and often, they say, you should be able to spend from Satoshi's coin wallets to prove it.
Right.
So, what kind of how do you arrive at such a position that you're in today? When, as far as I can see, or as far as I understand, Craig hasn't been able to spend from Satoshi's wallet to date, right?
That is correct. I wouldn't say that he hasn't been able to. I mean, that's making assumptions. That's we don't quite know what the answers are to. Could be a number of reasons why he's not spending from those addresses. Um, so yeah, there's always going to be kind of that mystery there. I get where I am with Craig Wright is like, okay, um, you have to kind of expect that Satoshi is going to be a super cryptic kind of guy. Okay, he's somebody that likes his privacy. And learning about Craig Wright, he was kind of thrust into the limelight. Um, if you look at this lawsuit with Dave Kleiman's estate, um, I mean, it kind of lends some validity to the fact that maybe those coins were not able to be moved because they were part of some sort of legal battle. Again, all these types of things are insinuations and conjecture. We don't really know. But what I do know about Craig is he knows more about the technology than anybody alive. Nobody knows more than he does. Um, so, I mean, when people come to me and say, "Hey, Dan, where are you getting these ideas? Like, how do you know so much about Bitcoin?" It's like I just think back to Craig, and I'm like, this guy, like, he busted out onto the scene in 2015 at some conference with what's his name, the guy that created eGold. I forget his name. Anyway, and he made him look like an idiot. Like Craig was talking about how Bitcoin was Turing complete, and people, independent researchers, only found out that Bitcoin was Turing complete in 2017. And so Craig has a deep knowledge. Whether he's 100% Satoshi or not, I can't say for sure. But I know that he has to have been a part of it.
DeFi projects, they at least claim they're decentralized. Now, for some, you can't have something come into existence immediately decentralized. There needs to
Right,
be a group of people or an individual to start the journey, right?
right, right.
So, talk to me a little bit about the typical ways that newcomers get onboarded, because from my limited research to date, it seems like there's always this figurehead. Whether it's a
Right.
mysterious Satoshi or you know,
Right. So, okay, I kind of see where you're going with this. Listen, at the end of the day, decentralization, it's a myth. It doesn't exist. Every time I ask somebody, how do you measure decentralization? Nobody can give me a clear-cut answer. What's sufficiently decentralized? Two, three, four nodes, 100 nodes, 2,000 nodes? What's decentralized? It doesn't make sense to me. There is no such thing as decentralization. As you've mentioned, you look at projects like Ethereum. You had the DAO exploit back in 2016, and they rolled back the chain. Okay, what's decentralized about that? Doesn't make sense to me. When they pushed through the SegWit change on Bitcoin BTC, they had this whole Bitcoin improvement proposal thing, and people were signaling for what sort of upgrade they wanted to do. What's decentralized about that? That's not decentralized when you have people like Luke Dash Jr., Greg Maxwell, Peter Todd, and these guys pushing this narrative that um, users count in the network. Sign up to the user activated software. Spin up a Raspberry Pi. Show your support. Signal. But listen, at the end of the day, who's pushing through the commits on the Bitcoin repository? That's what you have to be asking. You have to be asking who's pushing through the commits, and people need to pull their heads out of their collective arses and start saying, you know what, just because this is an open source project doesn't mean it's decentralized. Okay? There is a core group of people that control each project. For Solana, you have that Russian guy who has his AWS server, and when he turns it off, Solana shuts down. Okay, what's decentralized about that? There is no such thing as decentralization. It's always going to revolve around that figurehead. the figurehead can at some points walk away. We've seen that with BTC, but you see that that vacuum gets filled, right? So it's always going to be around that figurehead, and the way you get the newcomers into the system, you see it's all multi-level marketing. And somebody said it best. Crypto is like Mary Kay for young men. Like seriously, people are just marketing things, these cryptos, just to get people in so that they can get their bags paid off. I hope that answers the question.
No, that was perfect. So, assuming let's continue that train of thought. If decentralized, I'm actually in agreement at this point, and it's very clear that a lot of projects, if not all, especially those Ethereum smart contracts, have what's known as an origin address in which to kickstart these projects. So um, I'm looking closer and closer at various projects. A lot of them come in through LinkedIn, but at the moment I'm looking at Richard Hart's Hex, and he gets a lot of arguably he's the most hated individual in crypto within those in the know who have been around long enough, purely because he claims to have created a better Bitcoin, as he calls it. And although on the surface it doesn't seem to be anything like Bitcoin, not technically or anything, the, the the term benevolent dictator gets thrown around a lot when associated with these people that manage or have access or some sort of centralized control over the origin address. Now, what's been lost in the grand vision that people still, the marketing material still claim? What's been lost when we have a number of these hopefully benevolent dictators instead of decentralized protocols or DAOs, as you mentioned before? The grand vision, something's been lost there, right?
Yeah, well, I don't. Yeah, so like it just highlights the fact that the vision was utter bullcrap from the start, right? People are just embracing the idea these days um, that apes together are strong, right? So they look at Richard Hart as um, the head monkey in the group, right? And he throws a couple bananas their way, and that makes them satisfied. There's no more illusions for people that jump into Hex. People that get into Hex are very clear. It's a joke. It's a joke. And the reason they look at Richard and Richard can get away with saying he created a better Bitcoin because he's not mincing words. He'll tell you straight up, this is a pump coin. It's going to pump harder than Bitcoin. It's going to pump harder than anything out there. He has no illusions. He is like Richard Hart. I'll give him credit. Like he's an annoying guy, but at the end of the day, the Bitcoin maxis hate him because he knows the formula. He knows the formula, and he's doing it better. He doesn't care about this whole anti-state sort of thing. He's just looking for number go up, and yeah, all the power to him. Keep your scam going, but now don't people shouldn't have any illusions that this is like some sort of future technology. DeFi is not the future.
Yeah, and that's that gets to the heart of it, because so many of these projects, typically smart contracts on Ethereum, are they make these bold claims in their marketing material, join the decentralized revolution, etc. But just you only have to look, just scratch off the surface, and anybody can quickly see there's a lot of centralized components here. Now, the difference between Richard well, what he claims is that he won't associate himself with the origin address, whereas many other protocols, they don't mince words. They're located in Switzerland or Estonia or wherever, Malta, wherever. They're corporations and they don't beat around the bush about it. And so they are I assume they're regulated to a certain extent, but there's a dodge here that's happening where Richard seems to want to, in a sense, recreate or do a better version of Satoshi himself as well, right?
Right, right. Yeah, no, I can see what you're getting at, and it's yeah, he's doing the whole I can walk away and Hex will live on without me. I get that. But listen, at the end of the day, um, if he walks up, like he's the only reason Hex and all these sort of poo tokens are actually doing well is because there is like an unwritten sort of agreement in back channels. You want to get your token listed, you have to give a whole bunch to an exchange operator. You have to give a whole bunch to somebody like Palo Arduino from Tether. Okay? You have to give a whole bunch to maybe somebody at Circle so that USDC pairs can be paired up with your Poo token, right? So at the end of the day, Richard Hart, he is Hex. Without Richard Hart pushing through those contracts of, hey, pump my token, okay? Here's a whole bunch of tokens so that you can cash out when the market's is sufficiently inflated. If he's not there to grease those palms behind the scenes, Hex does not live on. So this whole idea of I will not associate with the origin address, it's a gimmick. It's a gimmick. It's not real. So it's a joke. He knows it's a joke, and it's very clear, with all the pageantry, like he's sitting on a throne and got like a regalia all about him. It's like, come on, buddy, you're a clown.
Yeah, it's funny as well because there's another documentary being made by the Hex community, or at least funded by them. If you look at the Ethereum wallets, and it's it was 1 or 2 months after I'd approached him that this rolled out, and that, they managed to get a $2 million together to create their documentary, mainly in Hex. But I've been following the wallet activity, and it got offloaded and stuff. So fair play to them, and they're going for the big show, getting it on Netflix and what have you. So I assume it's in time for Pulse Chain. You're familiar with Pulse Chain? He's making a snapshot of Ethereum.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so this is his next wave, and yeah, it's very very interesting to watch. A lot of people that I assume have become wealthy off of Hex. I saw a figure the other day that said 3,000 new millionaires have been minted by Richard himself. Of course, he won't take direct responsibility for that because he's just like he says, a cheerleader. But regardless, there's a couple more here. I'm actually going on with what's his name, Ben Gorzian. You know, he's a big proponent of decentralization. He believes artificial intelligence will replace those figureheads, Satoshi, Richard Hart, etc. Do you think that's a viable solution to this potentially benevolent dictator scenario that we see popping up here and there?
My goodness. I mean, I really blame a lack of education. People They look at technology as if it's some sort of otherworldly thing. AI, like, there's no AI that can ever do what human thought can do. Like, you can't replace humans with AI. It's just like this is a cash in. He's cashing in on the fad of decentralization. Everybody's cashing in on the fad of decentralization. I was in a room yesterday criticizing NFTs with a bunch of NFT lovers, and the whole thing was revolved around the idea that, oh, for the first time in history, the art scene has become decentralized, and regular artists can enter too, like they never could in the past. Come on, man. Like, seriously, it doesn't change anything. At the end of the day, like, for example, I asked the question, said, if in the past people, certain artists could not get their art purchased by, say, big time art collectors, why is that? And we need to ask why the buyers didn't buy, not um, how to make it easier for people to sell. What makes your art special, right? So I think decentralization is being pushed as some sort of new thing that adds, a new flavor, a new sliced bread sort of take on everything, and it's just a fad. It's not real, and it's people cashing in. They're cash grabs. That's all it is.
Exactly. I think we're in agreement there. I was recently in Miami. I went to the Decentral Miami conference there, and I interviewed a bunch of NFT artists, and not one of them could explain to me being why their artwork was being sold via a gallery, an NFT gallery. I said to them, surely that's a centralized component to your apparent freedom. And at that point, often they would put their hand over the camera and say, "Stop! I don't know." Like they lost their. It was an awkward question, I guess, because they hadn't bothered thinking about it themselves, and it was kind of tragic because they were obviously quite young. They were often young artists looking for a new way to sell their works, and some gallery had said, "Yeah, do this, do that." And I have actually been approached myself to release NFTs for you can think of them like interview tickets. So I don't know. You're probably not aware, but I have like 9 or 10 more documentaries that I could make, investigating many projects. And these people suggested that rather than the NFT functioned as a piece of artwork that was speculated upon, it was more like a key or an access key to get interviews, so that those people that wanted me to come and investigate this, that, or the other, like that's a utility. That's an additional utility that I guess gives it some sort of value. Um, Not a great. I mean, it doesn't need blockchain, right?
No, no. Yeah, I mean, there is a future for non-fungible tokens, but not with art. Okay, not with art. The this idea of NFTs or pieces of art is just so ridiculous, and it's just the idea is to hoard money into small little niches here, there, and everywhere in the blockchain space. It's all about hoarding money, moving money, liquidity, right? This is what this NFT craze is. It's about adding liquidity to the market. NFTs have a utility in the future. Like, for example, in gaming, like you can create an NFT, like an in-game item, like a sword for your character, that can then be traded on an external exchange with other players of that game who value that in-game token, right? That makes sense. That NFT makes sense. Making an NFT out of an interview, like an interview token, it doesn't make sense to me. It's like, what's the use? Like, why? Why? Why would you do that? It doesn't make sense. But yeah, there's definite uses for NFTs in the future, but definitely not in its current form.
Right on. Okay. Well, listen. Final thoughts on the future of the industry within the next 5 to 10, and then we'll wrap.
Yeah. Listen, I have a very apocalyptic view of blockchain. I think that in the end, you're gonna have it's either one chain is gonna rule them all, or nothing's gonna work. Um, so I believe, like within the next 5 years, majority of everything is gonna die, or we're gonna have crazy Ponzi world. Uh, for the unforeseeable future. It either works or it doesn't. And the only thing that I can see actually taking the mantle of this zero sum game is whichever blockchain can scale. Can you do microtransactions? Can you live up to the original promise of blockchain, which is super cheap transactions because it disintermediates third parties. You don't need PayPal. You don't need your banks. You can transfer value peer to peer over the internet, but it has to be uh, for sub pennies. You can't be paying more than that. So Ethereum will never scale. Ethereum will never scale. Bitcoin BTC will never scale. Anybody that tells you it's going to scale on second layers, third layers, fourth layers don't understand computer science. You add complexity, you create more problems. It's just none of these things will ever scale. So yeah, you have to look out for the chain that is going to scale on the base layer and that is that has good economic game theory. Without the economic game theory, it's just a clown show. So yeah, we'll see what happens in the next 5 years. Either it's Ponzi world or nothing works.